Hey everyone, welcome to another Minisode of another gaming podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dustin Kreis, and joining me is my other co-host, Steven, the Laggy Gamer.
Hey, Laggy Gamer here.
And also joining me tonight is Ultimate Floyd 1.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on again.
No problem. And tonight, if we ever get this thing working right, we are going to discuss...
With the hey.
With the hey, yeah. We are going to discuss Bioshock Infinite. A game that we all three have beat. The only reason why Chance is not here, of course, is because he has not played the game yet, so we didn't want to get him in on this because this is going to be a spoilerific commentary on the game here. And so if you have not played the games yet, would you kindly click off of this video? See what I did there, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Alright, that was a terrible intro. Let's get into this.
Yeah, this is going to have tons of spoilers. We're going to dive really deep into the story. We're going to spoil everything. So you've been warned. So don't leave any dirty comments that we spoiled stuff. Because you've been warned this time. Unlike episode 1 of another gaming podcast, you've been warned. So,
but anyway,
let's get into it.
Yeah. Well,
anytime now. Let's get into it. Yes, Bioshock Infinite. Anyways, what was all the hype for you guys? Were you guys super excited before this game came out? Did you not get excited till it got closer to release date? How were your feelings going into Bioshock Infinite?
As soon as they announced the game, I was super hyped for it. And I promptly went and pre-ordered it. And then every time I went into GameStop and bought something, they saw on my thing there that I had pre-ordered Bioshock Infinite, because every time it got delayed, they were like, "Oh, dude, so sorry, man," and they'd laugh, and all that stuff. And I was like, nah, it's okay, because as soon as it comes out, I mean, they can take their time, because as soon as it comes out, it's going to be amazing. And it really lived up to, well, it didn't live up to everything that maybe Bioshock 1 put into place, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. It hands down beat everything else that's come out so far that I've played.
What about you, Scott?
Kind of the same with I guess like with the original Bioshock, it came out of nowhere, right? Like I hadn't really looked up anything on the original, so that game surprised the hell out of me. Bioshock 2, I went into it with a lot of hype, and maybe I was disappointed a bit. Bioshock Infinite, I kind of avoided watching anything on it, so I kind of wasn't too hyped. But it was like the first game where I was like really shocked with how great it turned out. So yeah.
I know for me, I actually wasn't. I was a huge fan of the first one, and like you said, it caught me by surprise. I wasn't even interested in it till, reviews had already came out, and it was getting perfect scores like Infinite. It was getting super high scores, came out of nowhere, and downloaded the demo, and finally when getting to try that, it was just amazing. When there was a shortage of survival horror games, that was perfect timing for me, because it had that survival horror vibe to it, with just an awesome story and environment and setting. Bioshock Infinite, though, when I first saw trailers and previews, Bioshock name got me excited, but when I saw I'm in this bright, open cloud sky, I immediately was kind of turned off. I was like, this isn't Bioshock, this isn't Rapture, it isn't dark, it doesn't look scary at all, like the first two kind of were to me. And I had serious doubts about the game big time. And I didn't start getting super hyped until about a month to the release date, when hearing people who've got to play impressions of the game from the big sites and how impressed they were, all the technology going behind Elizabeth, and just hearing all these interviews with Ken Levine, it really started getting me excited for the game. And it was not going to be one of my day one purchases. And then it just slowly, ultimately convinced me, let me go get it day one. And I am so glad I did, because it is one of the great games of, I'm just going to say of all time, top 10 at least, as far as stories that you're ever going to witness. So that's, I don't know, none of you guys were a little worried at all about how the setting or anything was going with it? You were fully confident in it?
I was fully confident. I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was pretty confident, because I'm kind of glad they went with something crazy and new, like Columbia, the sky environment. Like, that's unique. I really wasn't worried, actually.
Yeah, as soon as I saw, because Bioshock 2 was not made by Irrational Games, and as soon as I saw that Irrational was handling Bioshock Infinite, I knew that it was going to be, up to par with the original game. And I actually really like steampunk. I also like diesel punk, which is what Bioshock 1 and 2 is. But I really like steampunk as well. And when I started seeing like the clockwork horses and things like that, and just the environment itself of Columbia, while it doesn't evoke sort of the same fear and creepiness that Rapture does, it's still a complete world, and it just begs to be explored. So I knew I was going to have a great time just running around town in that game.
Well, how about you, Dustin? Just if people don't know, if they've been living under a rock, just can you give us a brief synopsis on what Bioshock Infinite is taking place, just the main gist of it, and then we'll pick it apart here.
Okay. It's 1912, and I can't remember the exact. I think it was the 1911 World's Fair. America unveiled this great new city called Columbia, which was a floating city. And through various events, the city disappears. And basically, this guy named Booker DeWitt is being sent to find Columbia in order to kidnap, abduct, rescue, however you want to put it, because your perspective on that will change as the game progresses. This girl named Elizabeth in order to erase a pretty serious debt that he is in. And then from there, you get to explore the mysteries of Columbia and possibly the mysteries of another place as well. Uh-huh.
Good job.
Yeah.
And sorry, I lost my voice there for a second. And what was your? I'll go with you, Scott. What was more amazing? So when you go to Columbia, this game starts off. It seems like I can't remember how Bioshock 2 started off, Dustin. Did that start off outside of the lighthouse as well?
No,
because were you actually in?
In Bioshock 2, you play as a Big Daddy, so I think you just wake up, like at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, that's how it went. Okay. And so for the first and second one, you start outside this lighthouse. And basically in Bioshock Infinite, you're going through the lighthouse. As soon as you reach the top of this lighthouse, you're just rocketed up into Columbia. And that's when the music hits, everything kind of slows down for a second, and you're just kind of seeing this world as you're just rising up into the sky. And then when you walk out into this church, then out into Columbia, what do you guys think was a more phenomenal feeling? Walking out into those streets and through the Church of Columbia, or kind of those first steps in Rapture, the first time opening that door to the lighthouse? Which one was a more thrilling ride for you?
I think for me, of course, nothing is ever going to top that ride to Rapture, because honestly, you had no idea really what was going on. The entire time I was playing Infinite, I was like, okay, there's a lighthouse. I'm sitting in this chair and I'm getting rocked. Oh, okay. There was a lot of nostalgia with sort of the opening of Infinite and how it takes you back to the opening of the first Bioshock. But for my taste, nothing is ever going to top that bathysphere ride through Rapture, as the voice of Andrew Ryan, describes his great city. That's something that kind of I think Infinite missed out on, because if I remember correctly, there wasn't any narration to the ride into Columbia, was there?
Don't think so. Scott, do you remember anything?
It wasn't like Comstock, rattling on about stuff. So, but
I don't think there was anything while you're riding up there. Yeah.
But once you get into Columbia, and especially once you get into that the church setting, and you have to be baptized in order to get into the city, I was like, all right, now there's something going on. You know what I mean? Like, it instantly puts you. I'm like, maybe not for you, Steven, since you're a religious guy, but for me, I'm like, this is kind of putting me on edge, because to get into the city, you have to be baptized into the quote unquote religion. So instantly, I'm like, something's going down here.
Yeah, like that. Like, see, that interested me right off the bat. Like, one of the things I love about this game is how quickly you're hooked and invested with what they're showing you. So, like, when you are like getting baptized, and that music, the music that's playing in that beginning part, like, it's just amazing. It's so like it's so atmospheric, that whole part. And I was feeling on edge too during that part, and I was just, from then on, I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next.
which was crazy because, like Scott just touched on, that song "When the Circle Will Be Unbroken," which we mentioned in our me and Dustin our discussions. Just that song really sets the tone. It's first when you set foot into Columbia through that church, and that tone is playing in the background, which is kind of this beautiful song. Yet I don't know, sort of the way she's singing it, it sounds so good, but it kind of sounds somber at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you just pick apart the lyrics of this song, it's this old church hymn, and it just seems to fit perfect with it. And if you pick apart the lyrics, it really does. It will kind of spoil the game, like Dustin said his video for you, of everything just coming full circle. And the whole goal of kind of this game is trying to break the circle of what this story is. But like Scott said, when you got that music playing, and then when you go up to be baptized, I was seeing it in a different light. I'm like, since I am a religious guy, I'm like looking at this, okay, this already sent bad vibes for me because I'm going to get baptized, and then it's just going to show how bad it is to get baptized and get put into a religious, like, here we go again, let's down it again somewhere else. But that was like a meaningful part in the game. Of course, when you get further on, the baptism is so symbolic within the game, even near the end. So those first steps, and then you got that piano tune playing in the background, and you're going down that elevator into the city. People are looking happy. People are enjoying this vibrant life in the sky. You have a parade going by, and then things seem to turn from this happy-go-lucky place, and you're starting to think, why am I here to rescue somebody from this? That's the vibe I was getting. This seems like a pretty sweet place to live. Who needs rescuing? And or capturing, whatever you want to say at first. And then you see how things just turned from very lighthearted and vibrant to very dark really quick at this festival. And Scott, what did you think? Were you expecting that to be thrown in your face so soon when you get to the part where you have to make that decision between the interracial couple?
Actually, that was one kind of disappointment because I played this game a bit after you guys, so I'd heard about the racist kind of undertones to this game. Well, not really the game being racist, but tackling on racist themes. Mm-hmm. So when I hit that point, I was kind of expecting it, but it's something that you don't see in video games like at all. So it was it did kind of maybe catch me by surprise. And then at that point, you're like, okay, this place is maybe not what it seems. And then things like really pick up from there.
And did you choose to, when you get to this part, everyone, there's a choice whether you get to elect whether you throw this ball at the interracial couple or you can throw it at the announcer. Ultimately, same ending or the same thing happening, but I believe everyone I've talked to, I don't know if I asked you, Scott, did you throw the ball at the announcer or the couple?
Yeah, I threw it at the announcer. The second time I went through it, I tried just sitting there and seeing what would happen then, and then they'd notice your mark.
I did that the first time. I wanted to try to walk away from it, and then everyone's got you boxed in, so you can't. So I just went ahead and threw it at the guy, and yeah, of course they find the mark. But yeah, racism in this game. What were your feelings when you first saw it so soon, Dustin? And I think everyone knew there was going to be stuff with racism, politics, and religion in it. Do you know it was going to be as heavy-hitting as it kind of was in the game?
Well, when I saw it, my first reaction was I laughed. And when I say I laughed, I don't mean I laughed because I thought it was funny. I laughed because I was genuinely made to feel uncomfortable. Because I was like, holy shit, this game is going places where no other game would go. Because, I mean, a significant portion of the gaming community is African American. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, holy crap, if would they just shut it off if they get to this spot? I don't, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I threw it at the announcer because I was like, fuck that, I'm not throwing it at those people. And that
announcer, was that announcer Fink?
That was Fink, yeah.
Yeah, it was Fink, okay.
Yeah. And I just, as I was moving through the town, even I got a little bit of, the racism thrown at me because they're very against not only African Americans, but they're also very against the Irish. And I'm, half Irish. So, even me, in my, whiteness, it still would not be, full in. I think they made fun of Germans too, because they were talking about kraut at one point. I heard some NPCs talking about, secretly buying kraut. So even my German side was getting, lambasted. So, even me, I was still, feeling the effects of the racism of Colombia. And I have to applaud Irrational Games. I mean, they made a real piece of art out of this, and it should challenge you. It should make you feel uncomfortable. And if it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable and you just laugh at it, then I would seriously say you have something wrong with you.
Yeah. It touches on such heavy stuff, and when you start off this game, even when you're going through the beginning, it seemed to turn real quick. I thought I was expecting to do some more like exploring, talk to some more people, but then all of a sudden it just gets that scene in the carnival where you got to pick and throw it, and then everything's breaking loose. You're having police come after you just instantly. I thought it happened pretty quick in the game. It didn't bother me.
Well, yeah,
but
they've been so told that when the false shepherd comes, and then all of a sudden there he is, it's time to lay the smack down.
Well, yeah, that was it. When I didn't even know at that time. Do we even know what a false shepherd is?
No.
I think you hear little mumblings before you're getting there. So I'm
see like
they grab my hand and call me a false shepherd, and all of a sudden I'm being attacked.
That poster was kind of like that to me telegraphed that you were going to be caught very soon after that poster showed.
So, go ahead, Dustin.
I just said the poster that showed the hand there, yeah. But one thing I actually really loved about the opening of this game, and I can't say that Bioshock ever did this. I would love to see Rapture as like a living, breathing city. You can read the book, of course, and see it, but that's the one thing that they kind of did cool with this game is they actually allowed you to see Colombia as a breathing city before the fall, basically.
And it's crazy how there are two different types of falls, I guess, in my opinion, how the first Bioshocks are. One's like a fall from being addicted to these plasmids and by a leader who didn't want to kind of put a stop to this stuff. And then this fall, it just seems more of a civil war, just patriotism or exuberant amount of patriotism, just two different types of falling out, but still falling out nonetheless.
Yeah.
And Sam, were you going to say something, Scott?
I was just going to say, I guess that's something that some people take issue with as opposed to the other Bioshock games. Like this one doesn't have that thing where, Columbia is not fallen or anything like that. So you're not exploring it as it's kind of fallen and people, it's all fallen apart. You're exploring it as it's just there. So it's very different than the other two games. But I like that, actually.
Yeah, it was weird because the first Bioshock, like I said, I had that survival horror aspect to it.
Yeah.
When I'm hunting splicers or killing them, I didn't feel like I was killing a human. The people in Colombia are people. I'm killing cops that are coming after me, trying to stop me, and rebels and people like that, until you want to get into the handyman and stuff like that. But in a way, the handyman's a person, too. There's a person in there. But it just had that different vibe to me right off the bat when you first stick that sky hook in an actual human being's face.
Just grind them.
It's kind of a different vibe.
Yeah, I wonder too, because I've heard this complaint too, like the game's too violent, right? And I wonder, that's one of the main reasons too, because Bioshock you're just killing the splicers. This game you're killing humans, so it maybe seems more violent than the other two Bioshock games, but they're equally violent, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It almost felt like in Bioshock you were being merciful to those people. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Infinite definitely a different beast.
So once you get past this part, at this time you're still trying to find Elizabeth in the game, and at this point you still don't. I don't know what I'm getting her for. We just know we're finding her to pay off this debt that I don't even think at this time we know what the debt even is. Did they say in the beginning what this debt is? All you know is you have a debt that you're trying to pay off. Right?
I don't think they ever explain what the debt is. I think the debt is just a MacGuffin. I don't think they ever explain what it is. Just like some random gambling debts or something.
Yeah. I don't know if I think it is just some random gambling debt.
Yeah, I've heard people say that, and I'm trying to figure out where they got that from. I'm like, where did it say gambling debt in the game?
Well,
or is it an undertone somewhere?
It's very towards the end when you're getting a lot of shit thrown at you. And it's just it's kind of like just there and then it's gone because, who cares what the debt was? It doesn't matter what the debt was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're going through here, eventually you reach Elizabeth,
Wait,
And
before we get to Elizabeth, I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
I want to talk about one of the biggest what the fuck moments I had with this game, and
Go for it.
you know, like the thing of it is, I kind of knew that there's going to be there has to be something up with Columbia. If 1911 they have this city floated in the sky, but I never like really looked into it, you know. And Irrational did a great job of hiding, you know, what is actually holding it up there, even though it is kind of like a bunch of technobabble nonsense. But walking through this the big carnival that's going on in Colombia there, it's easy to miss. But did you guys catch the barbershop quartet singing "God Only Knows"?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. that was that right there. I mean, other than the city, a flying city in 1911, that right there was like, there's something fucking going wrong in this city. You know, if it's 50 years before that song was even written, at this barbershop quartet. And then, of course, you know, like on a gramophone, you'll hear like an instrumental version of "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." And I think "Everybody Rules the World." Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. So the incorporation of
wasn't that in a tear?
What's that?
Like Elizabeth opens a tear, and then you hear that song. Like when you first get to the tower, I
The
thought.
Tears for Fears. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when it opens up to Return of the Jedi? France.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even before you get to the tear, you know, you have that gramophone, and then you have the barbershop quartet. For me, you know, me being a big, huge Beach Boys fan, I just sat there and listened to the entire song.
Oh, me too. I think everyone had to stop and just listen to the song until the blimp flew off.
Yeah, you can't deny God Only Knows. But anyway, continue on now, Steven. I just want to talk about that.
Well, I was going to touch on that. I mean, I didn't even put that together. So what are you thinking? Like
at that stage,
people saw some future and they're taking songs for the future. Like, what were you?
Well, that's the thing.
What did you put together from that?
At that point in time, I just like I didn't even worry about it. Like I was just like, okay, something's going down. There's going to be a big, huge twist. And then once they started explaining the tears, I mean, that's how you start to understand. Once we can talk about the tears for about an hour, because that is really where the entirety of Columbia comes into existence. I mean, that's how the Vigors happened. It's very, you know, a lot of people complain about the Vigors not being explained, but it was in one of those audio logs, and it's very easy to miss.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why no one talks about how they created Vigors, because they stole it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but once you get into the tears, I mean, once you know Elizabeth opens that first tear, you're like, ah, you know, the light bulb goes on.
It was funny though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was funny when I was playing the soundtrack and my wife was listening to it. She was enjoying it too, and then the God Only Knows track comes on. She's like, "What? That sounds like the song from Love Actually. What is that doing?"
Sounds like the song from Love Actually.
It's like, what is that doing in your game? Yeah, she brings up Love Actually.
Yeah.
And but anyways, yeah. Speaking of Elizabeth and tears, you eventually you get to Elizabeth, the person you're there for, and you see her locked up in it seems like this experimental tower where they're always keeping watch on her, keeping an eye on her. And at this time, I mean, you meet her, you're like, why is she locked up? You don't know. Why do these people have her in a tower like this princess? And they kind of worship her as a princess. She is a princess there, right?
She is, shoot, what do they call it? I mean, yeah, essentially she's a princess, but what's the phrase, what's the term they use for her?
Shit.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember it either.
Because the story behind her is she was born within a week of birth. That's the story they're putting out there, right?
Yeah.
Mom was pregnant for a week, and bam, she was born. Here, I got I have your cheat wiki up here now, and I don't see the word you're looking for to call her.
Some kind of miracle child or something.
Yeah, damn.
I can't remember.
But you're in there and you're seeing all this stuff where there's windows everywhere, like she's just being spied on and looked at them, and I'm like, what is going on with this room? And you eventually meet Elizabeth, and wow, one of the great game characters I think we've seen, at least of this generation, out of all time. And for someone who's just a companion that you don't even play as in the game, she was quite the character.
The thing about Elizabeth is I think that it's really a subtle thing. Like, you can go play the entire game and be like, oh, I don't see what the great big deal is about Elizabeth. But the thing is, you have to watch her during, like, cutscenes. when other characters are talking, because there's this. I don't remember who pointed it out to me. I think it might have been in like just IGN's review or something. But it's one of the things where you're talking to the Lucines, and if you turn around and look at Elizabeth, she's standing there at this like beautiful what the fuck face. I mean, she's just making like I wish I had like video so I could show you guys, but she's like, her mouth is like agape, like what the fuck are they talking about? So it's subtle moments like that, or when you're just walking around and she goes over to a shop and just kind of looks in the window and is just kind of enjoying life. That's where she really comes alive.
Yeah, and she's got a great arc too. Like she's all kind of like when you first meet her, she's all like happy and just like she just wants to explore and just like she just likes everything. But like later in the game, she just becomes more sad as things are revealed to you.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, I think I remember, are you a big Disney movie fan, Scott? Or did you say you weren't as into those, like the animated ones?
No, growing up, I never really watched Disney movies. Mm-hmm. It was odd, but yeah.
But that's the vibe I was getting from her, like the big eyes, like a princess in those, and it just felt like a Disney movie at first with her finally getting out the castle and getting to see the world around her and being so excited and giddy.
And then the world sucks.
Dance.
Yeah. Like the moment with her dancing, like when she dances with those people on the beach.
Oh my god.
Like that part, like she's so happy there, and then that's one of the best scenes in the game, I think.
Scott, did you get the guitar scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great one too.
Yeah, that sealed the deal for me when Booker's playing the guitar and then she's just dancing and singing the song. I mean, that's the moment I fell in love with Elizabeth as a character. I was like, Jesus Christ. Because it's a first-person shooter. What first-person shooter would ever take the time to build a character like that?
Yeah.
It was. I was kind of at the beginning, at first playing through the game. At first, she wasn't connecting to me that much. I was like, okay, she's here.
Yeah, didn't you say something to me about that? Like
much in the story.
When you were playing?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what the big deal about Elizabeth is right now. It wasn't until further into the game where seeing her go through like the transition Scott was saying during where when she gets her hair, she cuts her hair off. Like it's almost like she's doing a transformation there, showing you when she's doing that. It just seems like there's so much symbolism in this game when all this stuff is happening with her. And Elizabeth has, like we were talking about, these ability to open tears within the world. And at first I was confused about how these tears actually work. Like, how is she doing this? What is the purpose of this? Scott, do you remember the whole reasoning behind the tears and how she has this ability?
I guess, like, they don't really explain that in the beginning of the game, right? I guess that's explained later when she, gets pulled through that portal and her finger, like a bit of her finger is left in one reality and in another reality. But yeah, early in the game, they don't really explain that, so it is kind of confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they ever really explain where the tears come from, unless it's in an audio log and I missed it. Because, they obviously existed before Elizabeth, because that's how they get Elizabeth, is by going through a tear. No, wait. No. Damn it, son of a bitch. I remember now. It's the Lucines. Because the woman...
The Lutesses,
yeah. She builds that machine that can make things levitate, and that's what starts tearing open the dimensions. And I don't know if...
because it's the same technology that helps keep the city alift, right?
Yeah. And I don't know how much you guys looked into this, because it's another thing that you might not get. But the male, however you say the last name, and the female, they're the same person from different dimensions.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Lutesses.
Yeah.
Sound it out with me. Lutesses.
Well,
I kept thinking Lucines for the longest time.
Yeah.
For Lucines.
For Christ's sake, I couldn't. It took me until we did the podcast episode to learn how to say Apuleius right. So,
but it's when Elizabeth, she's just such a great character, and she winds up being with you throughout the rest of the game, or at least most of the game. And the major problem with this, people thought would be like, is it an escort mission? And it is an escort mission, but it's not, because she's such a helpful character in the game, which we've all talked about in our discussions. When you're in trouble, she throws you money. She'll throw you a a salt to put your vigors back all the way full. She'll throw you health, and she's just an amazing character just to have walking around because she'll point out things to you. She'll say, "Hey, there's a lockpick on the floor," and you'll be like, "Oh, I need to go pick that lockpick up." I really enjoyed having her by the end of the game around. But as you're going around through Colombia, there's just so much more going on because when you get Elizabeth, I mean, it's the city's on the brink of a war within itself, and it's pretty much African Americans and all the people who
the downtrodden.
this whole city's against. Yeah, and they're just building up an army of rebels to kind of take over the city, and which always asks me to get to question why did they go up there in the first place?
I think that they were taken up there. It's like indentured servitude, basically. Like they could go up there and live in Colombia and be servants and kind of eke out a good existence. And then, of course, it got worse and worse in Colombia.
See, which just to play like the devil's advocates had like, hey, I brought you up here. Why are you turning on me anyway? I offered you opportunity up here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I know that's just a bad way to look at it, so why are you going to war with me? But, yeah, I mean, if they took them up there, that's one thing. But if they kind of said, well, I can go up there to work and make money and have a job, well, hey, you decided to come on up here to do it, so...
Yeah.
But that's just one way to look at it.
Well, look at it this way. They went up there to do that. And then Comstock's like, well, fuck the America. I'm seceding from the Union and stole the city, basically. So now they're stuck there,
Yeah.
And since they're stuck there, they probably want their own voice. The thing I loved about the Vox Populi is the fact that they didn't make them super sympathetic. Like when you first meet them, you're like, oh, these are the guys that are fighting the other guys. They're the good guys. And then you realize, maybe they're not the good guys. Maybe there are no good guys. That's what I thought was brilliant, is that they didn't go good and evil. They just went shades of gray.
Yeah, and I guess too, like with Daisy, she seems decent at first, and later in the game, it's no, she's just as crazy as Comstock.
She's just as nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So within the middle of trying to get Elizabeth out, I mean, you're kind of stuck in this war where you're trying to get your a ship to get a blimp, or what was the name of the ship he's trying to get off?
Oh,
I can't remember.
It's in reference. It's like First Lady Comstock.
Yeah. He's just trying to get this ship just so he can get away and get Elizabeth off this place. She wants to go to Paris and run away. And I remember that scene on the ship when they're first trying to do it, and she sees the coordinates he puts in, and she realizes that's not Paris. And that's a pretty powerful scene between those two right there.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
Well, and it gets, I mean, honestly, like, I was so heartbroken later in the game because you see, she's the one that wants to go to Paris. She wants to go to Paris so bad, and he kind of, tricks her. We're going to take her to New York City. But then later in the game, he's trying so desperately to say, let's leave. Let's go to Paris, because he hasn't figured it out consciously yet, but subconsciously, he knows who Elizabeth is, and he knows why he has to protect her. And he's pleading with her so passionately, let's go to Paris, while she's running away. And it pays off so much later in such a heartbreaking way when you realize what's going on there.
Yeah. And so we don't have to keep beating around a bush so we can get to discussing the ending. There are a few more things I just want to hit on. Up in the city, when we're talking about the Vox Populi, and you apparently eventually you'll reach a part where the shanty towns where they live. That was one of the most depressing places for me, visiting this shanty town, and that's where that scene with the guitar takes place, like you were saying, Dustin.
Yeah.
And
but wait,
seeing these children.
But you saw the shanty town, and then you're like, well, why are the Vox Populi fighting?
I know.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
I was thinking that before I got. You get to the shanty town, and I feel so horrible for. I mean, these little kids just sleeping under stairs, and it's just such a depressing sight. And that I'm kind of wondering. I don't know the story of how it went from you have this beautiful city in the sky, and how these shanty towns came about, because. I mean, we know why it happened in the first Bioshock. People spent all their money on plasmids like drug addicts, and they ran out of money. So I'm just wondering, I don't know how the shantytown came to form.
Well,
and how that came.
Think about the environment itself, about how racist and sort of white power it is. I mean, those people, they're going to put them. It's the way cities always work.
So you think they just got chased down there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because like in my hometown, it's funny how like the low income areas of the town were once where all the rich lived. You know what I mean? And as Columbia got built up and built up, people would move up to the more glamorous high rises that make up what Columbia is, and maybe the shanty town is what Columbia started out as when it first was built.
Well, what's so amazing about this is even in real life, where I live and where I work, and the city it's nearby, it kind of, in a way, sort of resembles this game in that the place where I work will eventually take over the city that is dying that it's in, and what it's going to try to do is build the city around its way, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to hit our shantytown quote areas that are in that city, and that's the first thing they're going to wipe off the map and redo, which is going to make the people there have to relocate somewhere else, even worse. So it's kind of weird because you can see it in a game, but it happens in real life too, and it's probably going to happen in the area where I work and stuff too, because that's just what they want to do. They want to clean house of what they think shouldn't be there. So it's just crazy how you can connect it to real life.
There was one thing down there in that shantytown that really blew my mind. You come across this mob that's beating up a bunch of cops, and you have a choice. You could either like tear in a Gatling gun to take them all down, or you could tear in food, and like all the people would run towards the food.
I remember that part. I didn't see the Gatling gun part. I just saw the food.
There was something else you could tear in, and it would start attacking them and wiping them out. And I was like, holy crap, that is such a... just in that little micro split-second decision there, it's so brilliant, Unfortunately, I didn't see the food until after I saw the machine gun guy, so I used the machine gun guy, and then I turned around and I was like, oh, there was food there.
I saw the food.
Yeah, same happened to me.
Oh, you got the machine gun too, Scott?
Yep, yeah.
So did you get any vibes from this shantytown when you went down there, man, or?
Yeah, like, I got down there and it was, it was very depressing, and then for a while I totally forgot I was even still in Columbia. I thought it was like this disconnected area that's just...
It was the same for me, you're right. It felt the same way.
Well, think about it like, I'm going to pull Star Wars in here for a second, like Coruscant, okay? The city, the main world of the Empire. It has all these beautiful high-rises, but as you go down lower and lower and lower, and unfortunately there was going to be a game that would really show us this world that might not get released, because LucasArts is now disbanded. But as you get lower and lower into the bowels of Coruscant, it's a dangerous, nasty place. So, I mean, for me, I never really felt that disconnect, because it made total sense. Like, think about New York City. You have those beautiful sky rises, right? And then what people forget about is, like, there's tons and tons of derelict subway tracks underneath the town that people live in. Like, I read this book about this entire group of, there's an entire society underneath the streets of New York.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
that no one knows about. So for me, like, the shantytown in Columbia made Columbia that much more real to me, because it made sense. That's where the poor and the destitute go. They go to the lower parts of the town.
Yep, agree 100%. It's just amazing, all the and just the things like you said, just riding the elevator down to it. It's just so crazy, just the little things, like you said, with the machine gun and the food. There's so many of those little things and fine touches without the game that actually do so much, and there's too many to try to think of to point out.
Other good moment too in the shantytown is the guys around the vending machine. They're kicking this vending machine, looking for any money they can get.
Oh, and what about I remember when you get to the shantytown, there's a part where you go to the bar down there.
Oh yeah,
and you see all these guys around the bar. Then later on through the shantytown, you go down there, like everyone's dead except two of them around the table. Mm-hmm. And you're like, it's just so crazy. And were there times in the game, maybe you guys can help explain this to me, until close to the end, sometimes I forget, because this game, when we get discussing the ending and stuff, because it's about time travel, interdimensional stuff, I would get confused sometimes. Am I still in the same timeline here, same year? am I 6 years ahead of time playing? Especially when you're going through the part with the Chinese like guy when you're trying to get the guns and stuff. Like at times I was confused whether I was in 1912 still or not during that time period.
I think that the problem you're having is because you're thinking time travel and interdimensional travel.
Yeah, I kept getting them mixed up.
Well, you don't. They're in terms of this game and its world, they're the same thing. So,
so no time travel.
I would say not. Even like when you later on, when you go to Rapture, I wouldn't even say that's time travel because in the world of Rapture, you never heard about Columbia, so it's still an interdimensional thing. It's just the different lighthouses that you could go through. When we get to the end of the game, that'll make sense. But the different lighthouses you can go to, it's not really a different time. It's just a completely different world. So
now isn't there though? There's like a post-credit sequence that it is in the past. It's not like in 1912.
Are you talking about the crib scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That I don't believe that's in the past at all. I think that is a completely different alternate reality where Booker never gives up the daughter. And that's what you're seeing. And it's supposed to fill you with like a sense of hope. Because especially when you get to the ending, you're like, oh, fuck, that's terrible. know? And I think that post-credit scene is supposed to be there to be like, it's okay. Because in one reality, Booker stayed with his daughter and it all worked out fine. That's what I got from it anyway. I mean, it's very open-ended, but...
Which, yeah, we'll rip into that one too when we get to there. So,
yeah.
And one more last thing, because... Man, I'm about to start coughing like crazy. Y'all have to carry while I get some water or something. Is we got to touch on Songbird before we get any further, too.
Yeah.
Because Songbird, I thought, when you first meet Elizabeth, I'm like, all right, here's the big daddy of the game.
It is.
And he kind of wasn't. I never got to fight Songbird.
Well, but that's the point. It's different this time because...
So explain it to me.
Okay. Well... Scott, do you want to take a stab at this? Because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I can try, I guess. I guess with the Songbird, right, it's Elizabeth's kind of, I want to say like kind of keeper of some of sorts.
Guardian, watcher.
Guardian, watchman. And late in the game, I guess, it's late in the game you kind of get the Songbird's help. Because it's so attached to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is so attached to Booker that it kind of, I don't know, they kind of use the Songbird in an interesting way where you're always kind of escaping from it, but never fighting it. And I think finally when you reach that ending point of the game and you get to use them to, attack the airships and Zeppelins, it's a really powerful moment. And it's helped because you didn't have like a mini boss encounter against him earlier in the game or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, what is Songbird? Is it a mechanical bird? Is there something else in the bird?
It's never really explained. The only thing I saw is that like Ken Levine once said that he's made up of like 80% leather or something like that. But I think that's the beautiful thing about Songbird is that he's not explained, and it can be like. It's just like the game. The game has multiple worlds. It can be anything you want it to be. Songbird can be what you want it to be. Part of me likes to think that it's almost like a handyman made out of another alternate Booker. And that's why Songbird is so defensive of Elizabeth. Is because he remembers what she is and why he has to protect her. That's what I like to believe. And I think that makes a nice little parallel. I mean, there's nothing in the game that would point you in that direction. But when I got done playing the game, just this idea that somewhere inside of Songbird is another Booker that we don't know about. It really kind of fit for me for some reason. But
well, I guess I do make the connection now with because I remember playing through the first Bioshock, and when you get to your first Big Daddy with that little sister.
Yeah.
I mean, all that Big Daddy was doing is trying to protect that little sister, and here I go. I'm like going to kill this thing for what reason? Either to harvest or rescue or save the little sister. But I mean, he's not really a bad guy, I guess, so to say, because he's just there trying to protect a little girl.
Yeah, the only thing he's trying to do is save Elizabeth.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, Songbird, same way. So there you go. That is a connection, I guess, right there with.
Well,
he's just trying to protect Elizabeth, and he doesn't. He's not a bad guy because he's just trying to do his job, keep Elizabeth
yeah.
safe, like I technically am in the game as Booker.
There is that scene that's right at the very end, the last time you see Songbird ever, right as it's dying. As soon as it falls below the line of sight behind Songbird, when you're in Rapture and another tube, you can see a little sister crying over a big daddy. And that right there is, I mean, everything that Songbird and Elizabeth are. That's what they are. Elizabeth is the little sister. Songbird is the big daddy. And, you know, it's like they say later in the ending of the game. There's always a city. There's always a man. You know, there's always some kind of father-daughter relationship being explored in there. So, I mean, it's parallelism. But
Which that leads me to one more thing before we have to talk about the ending, because the important character in the game, which we touched a little bit on earlier, are the Lutesses. And when you're first meeting them, going to the lighthouse on the boat, and I think they're two of the great characters in the game as well. They always, I mean, they're not a great person by the end of the game when you find out what they're all about. But I mean, there were some comedic relief in the beginning and stuff. I just thought they were great characters that they designed. Well, how about you, Scott? When you're first what did you think of the Lutesses when you're on the boat rowing and the coin flip and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I of course, like in the beginning of the game, I didn't know exactly who they were. But the weird thing is, I wasn't paying attention because when they did the coin flip part, I thought they were just new characters. I totally didn't make the connection that they were the people on the boat. So it wasn't until later that they kept showing up. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Who are these people? And then, of course, late in the game, once you find out, you know, their story, it's everything all comes together. And then playing the game again, it's everything makes more sense, and it's really cool that way.
That is cool going through again and seeing like, oh, so now I understand. He never rose. Of course, he never rose in any of the dimensions, probably. Or when the coin flip, of course, it's heads or tails again. It's never going to be tails. Or it's cool that when they're there, he kind of had that hope though, but maybe this time it will be. So things could be different. And nope, it wasn't. It was the same. So they kind of got the vibe. Maybe things are going to go out the same, but I thought they were really cool characters, and it was surprising. Every time I kept seeing them, I was like, what are these people here for, and how the heck are they popping up out of nowhere? I mean, they're just in front of me sometimes. I don't even know how they got here. So, I mean, what was doing? Could she open tears herself? I don't know. How is she always there all the time? Or both of them?
It goes into part of their experimentation, the machine that they made. It basically zapped them into like a limbo where they were connected to all points at once. So they can literally be everywhere at once.
See, that's why you're here, man. I did not put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I think I had to look. I'm sure you get it in one of the audio logs, but I had to actually look on the Bioshock wiki and their character pages to get that. But yeah, it's something to do with something that happens with the experiment, and it just like it disintegrates them from their quote unquote true reality and puts them in every reality. So in theory, if you go down a different corridor in Rapture, you could run into them. In theory. Like, it doesn't happen, of course, but in theory, they were in Rapture as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So eventually everything leads to the ending where you're chugging along, then all of a sudden things just start turning really dark. Elizabeth gets captured, and you're trying to rescue her, and then the whole ending really starts unfolding, and everything starts getting pieced together. And it kind of got a little confusing near the end for me until the actual ending scene started taking place. I kind of had a feeling what was coming and who Elizabeth was by this point of the game, because throughout the game I never felt like there was a romance connection like I thought it was going to be from the beginning. Like, oh, you're going to fall in love with Elizabeth, you're going to go to Paris, and you're going to be married, whatever. But I didn't see coming that, oh, wow, this is actually his daughter until... Now, Steven,
go
ahead.
Did you figure that out late in the game, or there's a moment, I think it's like halfway through the game, near the beach area, where a woman notices Elizabeth and calls her Annabelle. She goes, Annabelle, is that you? And it's like, oh, no, Elizabeth. Oh, okay, then. and she leaves. Did you think of anything at that moment, or did you just find that kind of a weird?
No, that was one of those weird things that after I didn't realize until after listening to another discussion. Adam Sessler, who Dustin likes so much, after hearing his thoughts on it and pointing it out, was like, "Oh my goodness!" It's like playing through again. It would be such a joy to just actually start picking up on all the things you missed.
I say that because I didn't watch the Adam Sessler thing till later, but I played the game again and I got to that part and I was like, "Oh shit!" Right?
See,
so
that is why these. Fuck it. Irrational Games could keep making Bioshock games forever, and I am fully confident that every time it's going to be an amazing experience, because like you could go back right now and play Bioshock 1 again, and I've played it 4 times completely through, and you will still find something new. Every time you play these games, you find something new, and especially with this game, because there's so much to explore. That every time you play is a new experience. So that's why I think it's so brilliant about these games.
Well, as you get through this game, there was a vision that Booker had in the beginning of, I believe, was it New York City getting attacked by Columbia?
Yeah.
Where he sees this happening, and eventually it all comes to near the ending where you finally walk through a doorway when you're trying to get Elizabeth back, and you see the scene actually taking place. And what was going through your head at that moment, Scott, when you finally realized and you're finding out, well, Elizabeth is the one who's causing all this? That is what surprised the crap out of me. I didn't see her as being the one leading all this stuff. Did you see that coming?
I can't say I did. So when I did get to that moment, I was surprised. And at that point, I was like, why can't more storylines in video games have this much of a surprise element and this much detail in the storyline? That was an amazing part of the game.
Dustin?
I was surprised that when you go through the door, you saw Elizabeth standing there. But like as soon as I saw her, my brain it instantly accepted it, because by that point in time, you're kind of used to the idea of an alternate reality because of the entire going after the Chinese gun maker and things like that. So. And my brain's been thoroughly trained by science fiction and Doctor Who and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. So, I was surprised. I was like, oh shit, there's an old Elizabeth. But at the same time, I was like, the wheel clicked over, and I was like, okay, I can change this. And my mind instantly went to, I can change this and prevent this future. And that's what made the ending so heartbreaking for me.
And that's one pivotal moment where she's telling you how you can actually change it, and which it kind of confused me, because if she knew this was going to happen what happened in other alternate universes? Did she give him a note and something else happened, or did he not follow through, or it just, there's so many possibilities, it can get overwhelming.
Yeah.
But,
they explain the entire thing. The say the name for me. I say Lucine.
Luteces.
The entire reason why the city floats is due to some kind of quantum mechanics. Well, quantum mechanics also, the theory of it is that every decision that you make is an alternate reality. So every time you make a decision as to whether to wake up at 9 o'clock or to wake up at 9:01 creates an alternate universe. So, I mean, when you look into that kind of stuff, I mean, and as soon as I heard the word quantum mechanics, my brain instantly went, aha, So, any choice that can happen in that game is an alternate universe. That's why you see so many lighthouses at the end of the game.
And it just goes from where Elizabeth is there and that old, beat down, decrepit version of her former self through what she's turned into from what you saw her as. And when she hands you the note of pretty much how you're going to save everyone with this letter, because it's pretty much just a code on how to get Songbird on your side at the end, like notes on the flute to play or something.
Yeah.
And she hands you that note, and you go into the final battle where you just hand Elizabeth that note, and she figures what it's all about. And I thought all that whole scene was amazing. I mean, people are starting to invade the ship. You got people coming. You hear a Songbird coming, and it's getting intense and loud. And all of a sudden, she figures it out. And then you get into this chaotic final battle, which everyone has been doing nothing but telling me of how tough it is. maybe it glitched on me the first time playing it because my health didn't get anywhere near like hit in that part. But I've heard there's been a couple restarts on that part of the game. Did you guys have a couple restarts?
Yeah, I had to do a couple of restarts because
Yeah,
the ship would just blow up.
yeah, I failed. I was
I don't-
kind of annoyed because that was a long sequence.
I don't know what was happening, but I mean, I think there's only three blimps is what I keep referring them to as, but I know there's something else in the name. They come in and Zeppelins, yeah, they weren't shooting at me, so I was just taking them down with Songbird, one hit on each of them, and the enemies on your ship aren't attacking me, or when they're shooting the ship, it didn't seem like they were doing any damage.
It must have glitched on you or something.
I was like, I must have had a wonderful glitch that was not doing anything.
Like the Colombian soldiers kept like getting dropped down and ripping me apart.
Oh, that's the thing. They just weren't doing anything. So I looked out there, I guess. But there's this amazing end sequence, that was different from the first Bioshock. The second Bioshock had pretty much a final boss too, correct? Yeah. And this was kind of a different thing for this game, where it wasn't really like a final boss per se, but it's a final standoff before you get to see the ending credits.
I want to pause 1 second, Steven, before we get to this final part here, because I want to go back to that scene with the old Elizabeth, because
yeah, go ahead.
Something clicked over my brain just now when we were talking about it, and I didn't really get a chance to point this out. But I think there's just something heartbreakingly beautiful about that scene, because this is an Elizabeth that has been beaten down and indoctrinated, by the reality that she was in. And even then, she realizes that in some other world, she can change things, and that she gives Booker that slip of paper. And she knows that there's no hope for her world, but it's so beautiful that she's like, you can save yours. You know what I mean? And
which that is incredible, because like Shane, like it's amazing because how she was supposed to be, for her to even realize it is amazing in itself. Like how she even got that feeling to do it. But
I just wanted to talk about that for just a brief second before we moved on to that barn burner of an ending.
Well, you finish your standoff on this boat, and then just everything starts to unravel in this ending where you want to it seems like the main goal was Booker thinks if you destroy the tower that Elizabeth was captured in, then they're going to just take off, go to Paris or whatever. They destroy the tower, and then looks like Songbird, who you got to be on your side, is now coming back towards you to attack you again because you've lost control of them, and then everything starts to unfold from there. I don't know who wants to pick it up, because I don't want to try it at first anyway. I'd say Scott, go ahead. Where's it go from there?
This is where things get confusing. Like,
yeah.
What did happen? Like,
you get immediately sent to Rapture. Yeah.
She opens a tear and takes you straight to Rapture.
What does she say? She says before she opens that tear. Did she say it's going to be okay or something?
He says something like he's coming right for us. He's going to attack us. She goes, no, he won't. And she opens the tear and sends
just this calm voice. No, he won't. And
bam, there you are in Rapture. And Songbird is on the other side of the glass in the ocean, which there is an audio log that talks about how Songbird can't deal with water because he's in the air. Why would he have to deal with water for?
Yeah.
Which
I thought cool. Anytime Dustin would bring up that part in the game, I like how you refer to it as home.
Yeah.
Like Dustin says, Rapture's home. So
yeah. Well, when you talk about Bioshock, I mean, instantly your brain goes to Rapture, and that's no detriment to Bioshock Infinite. But I don't think Columbia is ever going to overtake just Rapture. I mean, there was just something about it. But yeah, Scott, did you want to? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask Scott, when you saw Songbird like drowning there, at first when you first meet Songbird, was there kind of like hatred toward him because he doesn't like you because you're after Elizabeth? But when you seen him in the water, what was going through you there it was kind of a sad scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most sad scenes in the game, actually. Like, that part was just, I don't know, it was heartbreaking, to be honest. I was like, what? It
seemed like Elizabeth knew it was going to go to the water and she could have probably teleported him somewhere else where he couldn't have gone in the water, but it's like he had to die, almost like someone else has to die near the
Well,
end.
I mean, think about it. Go back to what I said earlier about Songbird being an alternate Booker. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that kind of, explains the same way with the ending. But, I mean, that's the reason why she sounds so sad when she says, like, no, he won't, or something like that, to that effect. I mean, that's how I always took it, is that, as soon as I saw that, oh, she's killing him, I was like, that's the reason why she was so somber when she said that, when she did the tear.
Hmm.
Yeah. I guess after this is the part where you see the multiple lighthouses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the raptor. And that to me was the first moment in the game where I was like, I had a completely like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, when I saw the multiple lighthouses, my jaw dropped because I understood. I was like, oh my god, there are infinite Bioshocks out there. The title just made so much sense. And I was like, holy shit.
My first reaction when I saw him was like, what a cop-out.
Oh.
I was like, what a cop-out.
No.
You're going to make... I mean, hey, I love how it ended now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great ending. But sometimes when you're starting about quantum mechanics and time travel and so on and so forth, sometimes I think that can be like such a cop-out ending. Like, oh, it could be a different universe, so technically what you did in the game means nothing.
No, it worked so brilliantly with the style of the games because my game is different from your game. It's different from Scott's game. Even with Bioshock 1 and 2, they're we can have completely different experiences. It explains all of that with the different lighthouses. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But like I said, that was my first instinct when I watched it. But yeah, you see the lighthouses, and that's when confusion kind of sort of set in because you realize by that point there's different universes and everything. But then when you see all those, it's like, what the heck? There's so many. Which means there's so many possibilities for future games, I'd say, down the road. But if anyone else wants to take it from there, if Scott wants to keep going, you see all the lighthouses, and it takes you... Does it do certain sequences through the first lighthouse first? She's going through explaining how...
She's explaining, and you see in the distance, as you're walking towards these other lighthouses, of course you have the bridge come up to meet you so you can continue your journey. And if you look off in the distance, you will see alternate Elizabeths and alternate Bookers going through their version of their realities. And it's really a nexus point for everything. The entire universe meets at all these lighthouses. And
well, the video you linked me to, the guy said something great while you were walking across one lighthouse to the other. He said you can either walk to this door,
or you can walk to another,
or you can walk to this other door, but ultimately you're going to lead to the same place anyway.
The illusion of choice.
Because the illusion of choice. Is that what he was saying there?
Because the thing with the infinite universe is it all relies on a fulcrum, and that fulcrum is Booker's choice during the initial. Dogs are going crazy. They got excited because hey, shh.
Introducing our fourth guest.
Yeah, the dogs. But it all goes back to that nexus point. What is the fulcrum of the entirety of the Columbian universe? And the entirety of that universe is the choice of Booker choosing to get baptized or not. And I mean, everything leads back to that. There's nothing before that, and there's nothing really after that when you really think about it. It all relies on that one choice. Does he get baptized or not? And then from that point on, everything can go, different ways. But that is where the beginning of all of this, that's where everything begins. Does he become Comstock or does he stay Booker? And then once he's Booker, you have all these branches that can go off. And once he becomes Comstock, you have all these branches that can come off. But the fulcrum is that initial choice.
Which it was crazy because that like we said, the baptism was so symbolic and so powerful at the beginning, and there it was at the end again. And throughout the game, you're hearing all this stuff about being born again. And like being a Christian, when you get baptized and if you accept Christ in your life, that is being born again. So it's so amazing that the game took it into the baptism, being born again throughout the game. And he really does. He either gets born again into this other guy, or if he doesn't, he gets to stay Booker DeWitt. And it's kind of crazy because I don't know. we don't know how Comstock becomes Comstock. That's one of the kind of missing things in the game too. That hopefully they'll put in throughout the DLC, because something has to happen between the baptism and when he comes Comstock that kind of throws him off the wall.
Well, didn't it explain it a little bit? That, I mean, he just became like super. After the baptism, it really affected me. Became super religious, and then, not to knock religion, but if you get like, really into it, you become very insular with it. Whereas you believe that your thoughts are the correct thoughts, and everyone else's thoughts are not. Well, you don't believe what I believe, so you're wrong. That kind of mindset. And maybe there's some kind of, 1911, maybe there's some kind of internal racism inherent in Booker DeWitt. And that just came out, after that change, and he started to listen to that more. And that's what kind of created this entire, Colombian nightmare. So,
Scott, when this ending's unfolded, or go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask you if you think this game maybe is kind of against religion, or do you feel like it's neutral? It's not.
I didn't get, and I had this planned out better when we were going to initially do this podcast like forever ago now, and I had the perfect answer to that question, and it's like slipping my head now. But I don't think it was, because Ken Levine himself, he's Jewish and he follows it, so I don't think it is anti. But I think it is kind of more neutral, because there are things. This guy kind of made his own religion, which people could say that about any religion. Like someone made up this religion, so they're following it. But I don't think it is anti, because you can view it different ways. There are things that can show that, man, it's so bad. But then there are choices that Booker is doing for the Booker DeWitt that it's not so good either. So I think it kind of balances itself out throughout the game.
Yeah,
I think it.
That's basically how I feel.
Yeah, I think it's like anti-extremist, because when you take things,
that would be the perfect thing there.
Because on the one hand, you have the extremeness of Comstock's views, but on the other hand, I keep getting pulled back to "Will the Circle Be Unbroken," and with that being an old church hymn, and just how much that affects the world. And really, when you listen to the music, I mean, it is kind of an uplifting song in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think the extremist views are in your face, but I think the subtleties of faith are it's a much more subtle message that faith is important. I guess that's just my view on it, and that's coming from an atheist. So I mean, there you go.
Because even in a way, Booker DeWitt has a different type of faith. It might not be the same faith that Comstock has after getting baptized, but he's got faith in something.
I think one of the key lines is when Elizabeth and DeWitt were talking about God, and DeWitt says, "I'm not scared of God, but I'm scared of you."
Yeah.
And that comes very early in the game when he's just getting acclimated to this idea of tears. But I think
that's once you first open that tear in the elevator, right?
Yeah. But I think...
Doesn't it also... Like, it says that right in the beginning of the game? Like, it's like the very first... It's like a quote, and then the game starts, right?
Oh, I can't remember the quote, but it could.
Yeah. But I think what... Because it really is a question of faith. This game is about faith in a lot of ways. And what Booker... Where he finds his faith is in Elizabeth. And it's a hard-fought faith, because initially he's scared of it. But by the end of the game, he comes to accept it. And that's what makes the ending of the game so fucking gorgeous. Is that, I mean, he puts his entire faith in Elizabeth and knows what has to be done.
So in the end, I guess, Scott, you pick it up from there if you want. We go to get baptized, and it forces us to... It didn't force us. That time you actually didn't get baptized. You said, screw this. What is getting dipped in the water is not going to cure me of my sins. Yeah. It's not going to save me. And he takes off to another doorway. But it all eventually, again, comes circled around.
He's right back to
the baptism scene. Yeah. And Scott, did you see that coming by that time when you get back to it? Did you pick up yet what was about to happen? Or were you still kind of shocked? And you can go ahead and go into the ending now and tell what happens if you want.
I was still, at that part, I was still kind of confused, but slowly things were kind of starting to make sense. And at this point, like, this whole part of the game is where my mind was just being blown. I was like, what? But why right now? Now I, for some reason, can't remember what happened next.
You get to the water in Elizabeth's from
Oh yeah,
different type, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the multiple Elizabeths are there from like different
Realities.
Yeah. And then after that, geez, why can't I can't remember right now what happened next then?
You die.
They baptize you and you die.
Right, it drowns you.
But that's the thing about the ending, and like it killed me that I could not talk about this in my game discussion because I didn't want to do spoilers. But you have to look at Booker DeWitt as a Christ figure. That's what he is, sacrificing himself to restore everything.
Else,
yeah, and it's like basically in a lot of ways this is a very Christianity-based game, with Comstock and his views and stuff like that. But just the story of DeWitt himself and sort of being the sacrificial lamb, that he is the fulcrum point. Which that's the thing though. I don't understand how he could be the fulcrum point when there's multiple DeWitts. But we're not going to get into that sort of plot hole there.
yeah.
But if you just look at it as he is the fulcrum point, then he has to die in order to make sure that none of this ever happens.
And I forgot what the words of choice actually were at that part, but I remember he gets back to that scene and he's kind of surprised, like, why are we back here? And he turns around and sees the multiple Elizabeths popping up. And I don't know, I knew it was kind of coming by that point, and you could sense it. I could just sense I just sensed sadness at that point. It was getting pretty sad.
Not so much sadness, but just resignation.
Yeah, and what does she... I don't know what she says before that, or he's saying something before he gets dunked, and I forget what it is.
I think he's saying something towards the effect of accepting it.
I wish I could remember the exact words. It wasn't long, but then a few of the Elizabeths are holding him down, finally drowning him, and then you slowly see one by one each Elizabeth disappearing, and the camera kind of pans up. There's one more Elizabeth standing, and you don't really know what happens to her.
I thought I read somewhere, because when the Elizabeths start to disappear, you hear like a ping sound, right? And then there's that one left, and I guess somewhere, I don't know if it was in the post-credit sequence or after that ending scene, you hear that final ping, but you just hear it. You don't see that final Elizabeth disappear.
And I thought it was cool because I was watching some video that pointed out that one of the very first builds of Elizabeth was in that little scene of them standing around. Yeah,
from the trailers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
she went through,
that entirety, existed. That's awesome.
So basically, what the game was saying at the end, like Dustin was saying, is Booker's being drowned, so that should fix everything. But that's when it just got more confusing for me, because I was like, how is this changing anything? Because, like you were saying, Dustin, there's multiple alternate realities.
Yeah.
So there's still a Booker somewhere else who's going to be doing something different, right?
Yeah.
So this is where it got confusing for me.
And that's what the I really think that's what the post-credit scene really instills, is that this, on the one hand,
you can go ahead and we can say the scene in full detail now if you want. Real quick.
It's Booker back in his shitty apartment, and he hears Annabelle crying, and he goes into her room and sees the crib there, and he walks up towards it saying her name, and then it cuts before you see in the crib and see if Annabelle's actually there, but you hear her crying. And for me, I mean, it's a very open-ended type of scene. On the one hand, you could view it as this changes nothing. He still has to face giving her up in order to pay off the debt. But I chose to look at it as it didn't change anything, but in one reality, he is still there with Annabelle, and he can still make that choice. And maybe, now that I'm talking about it, maybe that's the fulcrum. Maybe it's not so much his choice to be baptized.
Of the baptism?
Oh.
Maybe that's the true fulcrum. The choice of giving up Annabelle or keeping her. Because I almost think, like, it was explained in the game that was a fixed point in time. Like, he had to give her up. That's how the game presents it. Every time it goes to that flashback scene, you have to give her up. The game forces you to give her up.
Yeah, there was never a point to not give her up.
But maybe that's the true fulcrum of the entire universe, is giving her up. I just blew my
you
mind
nailed
right
it.
now.
Blew your own mind because he did make a decision. We saw where one time he didn't get baptized and he become Comstock, and so I think you're right there. It's a fulcrum, but it looks like that one will never get changed.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
that's the beauty.
It's up to your interpretation.
Exactly, and that's why I love just stories like this that end open-ended and are ambiguous, because it makes you think. Like, if everything was tied up at the end of the game, who the fuck cares? It's done. But with this open ending and how you can view that post-credit scene, it's just, I could sit here and think of multiple scenarios, It's beautiful.
So when you saw that one, Scott, were your initial thoughts like, you're going to go the happy side and be like, well, this will be real and I'll believe that he will be with Elizabeth and everything will be okay? Or were your kind of thoughts like, I know mine initially were, this is kind of like a grayed out scene again. So part of me was like, this probably isn't real because there's no color. It's all saturated out again, like it's a memory and not really happening. But when you first saw it, what were you thinking, Scott?
I admit I was thinking more on like the negative side, like she's not in the crib. I don't know. I just my mind just kind of works that way for a lot of movies and things that are ambiguous. Usually, I like to think of them having like kind of like depressing endings for whatever reason. So the whole time during that scene, that's kind of what was in my mind.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm gonna go with Dustin's ending though. I like how he put it. It was beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
now that you said it that way, I kind of.
Yeah, it's just like you go through the ending, and it's like the way the game ends, you don't get any resolution out of it, and you get that post-credit scene, and you could make a resolution if you want to. So I choose to. It's again, it goes back to the nature of the game itself. It's all about choice. How do you want to choose to perceive that final scene? And it can go infinite number of ways. So,
or it could go, like you're saying, opposite. Not so much choice, because sometimes you didn't get that much choice.
The illusion of choice. Maybe Booker is locked into this course of action, and he's going to be replaying this an infinite number of times. So that's the beauty of this game, is you get what you want out of it. But yeah,
it was truly one of the greatest stories. And I wasn't really expecting it to be as deep as it was and to have so much interpretation that it could have. And it really felt like a nice adult, like, video game's supposed to be for kids and blah, blah, blah. It really felt like a mature adult-themed game that an adult would get more out of this than. It's a mature game, but I think if, like, you're a teenager and you don't want to pay attention to the story, hey, it's a fun shooter.
Yeah. You
got superpowers in one hand, you got guns in the other, and you're shooting around on skylines, which we didn't touch the gameplay, but it's a Bioshock game. You got vigors, and you know how to play Bioshock. And this was supposed to be a Minisode, so. But I liked how it was so mature with the storytelling, and it makes me happy that maybe we could see some more quality story, mature games down the road. Scott, what about you, man?
Yeah, like, did you guys feel like the storyline in this game was a lot more complex and confusing than like the original Bioshocks?
Very much.
It was more complex, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. But I think that's because I think that's a great thing, because like me, I'm sitting here chomping at the bit, wanting to play it again. But at the same time, I'm like, I gotta play some other games first. You know what I mean? But I so desperately want to go back and play this game again.
The first Bioshock, still, I think most agree. Probably overall, I felt like it's just a better experience being in Rapture and all. And the twist at the end of that game still, just amazing of how everything played out at the end. It was just, I loved it. It was a simpler story. It wasn't as complex, but still fantastic. I thought it knocked it out the park even with that one.
I go back to a thing I read about the band Tool, in that they are a thinking man's metal band. I think that Bioshock is a thinking man's first-person shooter. Because with the themes present, it's, you can get what you want to out of it. If you just want a first-person shooter, bam, there you go. But if you want to explore some of the deeper meanings behind these games, you can explore for a lifetime at some of these themes that they're presenting. So,
and I guess the next thing would be is How do you go from here? If you know everything's connected though,
Yeah.
I mean, what would the ending of a game be then? Like, could you still have a traditional ending? Not like they would do something traditional at Irrational Games, but you can't just say, "Hey, you're in a different realities again" or something. Or could they just keep going with that? Or can you just have like a clear-cut ending, kind of like they ended off or Rapture was?
I don't know. In a lot of ways, I really feel, as much as I hate to say this, I feel like this is Irrational Games' goodbye to Bioshock. Because
I think I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some more Bioshock games down the road. Who knows? Maybe we'll go back to Rapture. Maybe we'll do another thing in Columbia. But for me, just with the way that they attack everything and nothing at once, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's nowhere they can go from here. There's no story they can tell. They've told every story they could possibly tell with this one game because of the nature of the story itself. So in a lot of ways, I mean, this feels like a goodbye to the Bioshock universe, which is not a bad thing because then they can go on to create new things and we all be excited about that. But I don't know. I don't see where they can go from here. I mean, between the Art Deco-ness of Bioshock 1 and 2 and then the steampunkness of Columbia, I just don't know what they can do next. And people be like, oh, I see what they're doing. You know what I mean? It feels like a love letter to all of us who enjoyed Bioshock so much, and now they're ready to move on to something else.
Well, that's depressing.
Well, I mean, it's depressing, but I mean, think about like Bungie with Halo. Now they're doing Destiny, and everyone's kind of jazzed about seeing what Destiny's all about. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, if it is their swan song, because you're right, when I'm sitting there thinking about it, I don't know what they could do to go. If there is a game that takes place in Rapture or something again, of course I'll play it, because I just love Rapture so much, and like, I know me and Dustin, and I think many others agree, we really missed it, and it was really nice being able to visit it for that short time in the Bioshock Infinite, but it was tough to say goodbye to that place, so just saying goodbye to Bioshock, I would hope it's not the end, but you're right, I really don't see, do you see anywhere, Scott, they might be able to go with it, or like you said, you think it's probably wrapped up too?
Like Dustin was saying, I don't know. I just don't see how they could possibly continue it.
So let's. I know this is supposed to be a mini one. Do we want to touch on gameplay, or should we try to wrap it up?
I think between all of our videos individually,
Yeah.
I think we've touched on the gameplay. I really wanted to just talk about like the themes and the story and things like that.
We'll leave links to all those too, so people can check out in the description. And I guess for the final thing, where would you guys kind of rank this as far as your Bioshock, Scott? Where would you kind of put it in at?
As amazing as the storyline is, it's not. I miss the survival horror type gameplay of Bioshock 1 and 2, and I think that's what kind of gets it in third. Bioshock being my favorite, then Bioshock 2. I actually like Bioshock 2 a lot more than most people did.
So would you say story overall number 1, or?
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure, the story.
Game overall number 3.
Yeah.
Okay. I would probably be the same way. I think probably because I really enjoyed the first story, as simple as it was. Just this third one, the Infinite, was so mind blowing. But I'm right there with you, Scott. I love the tight corridor, kind of slower paced survival horror feel of that Rapture and being underwater and the dark tones and themes that not only were in the story, but I mean it was around you, surrounding you, just in the environment. And just the splicers and Big Daddies, and just overall, I think the first one still holds the crown as the best game out of the series for me. And Bioshock 2 would be my second, and it probably would be third. But overall story, I mean, it's definitely number 1. And as far as characters as well, like Elizabeth and the Lutesses and stuff, got great characters too. So, but I'd probably put the book. The book is really good for Bioshock Rapture 2. So I'd probably put the first game, then the book, then Bioshock 2, then Infinite. So that'll be my order. What about you, Dustin?
I pretty much agree with everything that's said. I think in terms of raw gameplay, I think the first Bioshock wins. I agree with a lot of the things, like the Vigors aren't as good as the Plasmids, and, there's no... Like, I remember, whenever you see a big daddy and a little sister, the anticipation and the preparation, like, oh shit, can I really deal with this right now? And there really wasn't that in Bioshock Infinite. But in terms of just raw storytelling, and there's a debate out there whether video games are an effective medium for storytelling. Bioshock Infinite knocks it out of the park. And even with its gameplay sort of, it's not as good gameplay-wise as Bioshock 1. And Bioshock 2, I think, is a great hidden gem out there. I think a lot of people slagged it off for no real reason other than the fact that it was kind of like an also ran with Bioshock 1. But really, I mean, can there be enough rapture out there? I don't know. But I think Bioshock 2 is a great unsung gem. But
Big Sisters ain't no joke, everybody. They will kick your butt.
Yeah. But, in terms of, like, just straight narrative and the themes present, Bioshock Infinite, rivals. It certainly rivals a lot of television. And I would even say, in some respects, it doesn't rival the best that film can do, but it's getting close. I mean, Bioshock Infinite really makes me feel like video games are going to become a true art form down the road. We're not there yet, but Bioshock Infinite makes me hopeful for the future. So, in terms of gameplay, I would go Bioshock 1, Bioshock 2, Bioshock Infinite, of course. But story-wise, I mean, Infinite is leaps and bounds further than either of the other two games.
100%. So I guess that'll wrap us up then. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, that means you played the game, so we won't tell you to go out and get it. But for some reason, you're listening to it and wanting it ruined, which I have a feeling Chance is going to listen to this and spoil the game for himself. If you just play this game and experience it, because it's so amazing. Scott, if people start clapping for him right now, because me and Dustin were on Skype, and we just said, hey, Scott, want to get in on this with us?
Yeah. And
he was just so generous to come on here and just chat with us about it. Cause
he had like 2 seconds notice.
I mean, what a sport. So everyone can clap for Scott and being such a sport for us. So thanks, man, for just tagging along with this. It was supposed to be a mini-sode, but almost been a full-fledged episode just on Bioshock.
We have to go. We could go another hour if you really want to make it a full-fledged episode, but we're only an hour and a half right now, so we're good.
Oh man! Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, it's a mini-sode and a half.
You can go ahead and say thanks now, Scott, since he kept cutting you off.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me on. It's fun to talk about Bioshock Infinite. I really hope, I hope more games now are try for more deeper and complex storylines, tackling more themes. I really hope they do.
Yeah.
You don't want more Bulletstorm, man, or stuff like that?
I like that game, but yeah,
the story though, yeah. All right, Dustin, take us out, man.
All right, so hopefully everyone that watched this, I mean, it's going to be in big letters on the title that says spoilers. Hopefully we didn't ruin anything for you. Hopefully you got something out of this, maybe something that you didn't, you didn't think of or get from another video somewhere. But we really appreciate all you guys listening to our ramblings, I guess. And hopefully here in the future we'll get more content out there for you guys. But for this
Pandora's Tower.
What's that?
Hopefully Pandora's Tower. Sorry.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get something in on that.
Yeah,
since we're all getting.
Because Chance has it pre-ordered too, right?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, yeah. So maybe the next. Well, we're gonna have some minisode before then. I hope so. But there's definitely gonna be a big Pandora's Tower minisode where we talk about all of the. Hopefully, all of the.
Oh man!
I know, Chance. He's never.
Get ready for 4 hours worth of podcast.
Maybe we'll just do a normal podcast for that. But all the Operation Rainfall games and but yeah. So anyway, guys, I'm Dustin Crace, and I thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll let everyone else say goodnight.
Bye.
Bye.